there, YouTube. It's me. I've decided to post a video that's outside my series on reasons to hate Twilight, but is still Twilight related. It's a response to NuttyMadam's 3575's My Point video, and it will be directed at her, addressing her. To say that the opinion of people who have issues with Twilight doesn't count for much because we haven't written bestsellers ourselves is very specious reasoning. By your logic, I'm not allowed to have a critical opinion of a movie because I've never made a movie myself. Neither is any other person outside of the movie-making industry allowed to say anything bad about any movie that's ever made. Nor am I allowed to have opinions about anime, music, or comic books that might be considered negative, because I'm neither a Japanese animation artist, a musician, nor a comic book writer. I sympathize with the fact that you've been bullied, especially what people have said about your weight is cruel and very unfair. As you can see, I'm not exactly a skinny girl myself. But I do think you've been doing a fair amount of bullying yourself. Yeah. By yelling your opinions against people who disagree with you, and you have been less than calm. And you're very impassionate when you proclaim your love for Twilight and hate for antis. And I suppose this is just you giving out the abuse you receive, but I hardly think it's the solution to the problem. Fighting fire with fire just gets a ton of people burned, including yourself, but you seem to expect this and accept it because, as you said, you just want your voice heard. And I don't think it's wrong to be obsessed with something. I've had obsessions going back to the age of 5 when I would watch the Disney movie Aladdin, which I still love, like 3 times a day for weeks on end. Many antis have fandoms of their own and are happy to discuss, write fics, and make videos for them, dress up as one of the characters, and spend more money than they have on merchandise and videos and the DVDs and whatever that all goes with it, and of course, conventions. I'm a geek, I know it, and I like me that way. Twilight is not original. I'm not sure if you ever heard of True Blood, but the TV series is based on the Stooky Stackhouse series of books, which was published 3 years before Twilight. It features a vampire named Bill who hasn't been given a soul by some outside force like Spike and Angel, but who's only different from other vampires of his kind because he chooses to be, like the Cullens. This type of vampire can also be seen in the light novel, anime, and manga series known as Trinity Blood. Character Abel is only different from the antagonist because he chooses to be. Physically, they're the same. They're both Krusniks, which are vampires that drink the blood of other vampires. The only thing that makes there are only 2 things that make Twilight different from other vampires, is that they sparkle, which I think is a rather ridiculous thing to do to a bloodthirsty, murderous creature of the night. There is also the fact that these vampires can't die of starvation. There are no other vampires ever where this is the case. I would argue that this feature doesn't make the Twilight vampires real vampires. Vampires are able to maintain their immortality by feeding off the blood of others. It's loaded Christian symbolism. Catholics today, and since the beginning of the church, believe that you can live forever, or your soul can anyway, if you drink the body and blood of Christ every Sunday. According to the idea of transubstantiation, bread and wine actually become the body and blood of Christ. So vampires, who are the dark side of the Catholic Church, also have to regularly ingest the blood of people to be able to maintain their immortality. It is the consumption of life that allows for them to live forever in their undead state. The fact that vampires are beautiful has also been done. As a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you should know this. And as a fan of Buffy, you should know that vampires have also been humanized and given souls. So, you can see there are plenty of vampire stories that have tweak with vampires, but not so completely to strip them of all the traits that make them vampires, but then slap the label that says vampires on them anyway. And the fact that you call us stupid for saying that Twilight has not had detrimental effects on young girls for romancing, stalking, and abusive relationships means that you are truly ignorant of your own fandom. I'll read a story that was posted by a young girl on the live journal community Fandomsecrets. I had an Edward. In my freshman year, I met a boy who was surprisingly insightful in the way that my mind worked and showed an interest in my subtle nuances that no one had before. He was my first boyfriend. He had a flair for the romantic, and he had the charming vampire thing going for him. And I fell for it, despite other people's warnings against it. And eventually, I slipped into a state of "we are so perfect, you know me so well" bliss, until he dumped me, and didn't talk to me for a month. I was a total wreck. I ended up walking a mile to his house to demand answers. He said he still loved me and thought I was too innocent to take advantage of. But then I started to hang as his friend, and he played so many tricks on me. He fucked with my head, because I had given him control of my mind and my heart. This "I'm a vampire" thing began to grow. He began to introduce his friends to me as his vampire daughter. And he tried to become my father figure, all the while flaunting his new girlfriend in front of me, talking about the sex they had and how they wanted to get pregnant so badly. And then, one day, I snapped out of it and told him to stay away. The tryhards who want a boy just like Edward, who's perfect and charming and romantic and knows you so well and will play vampire games with you, life is not a book. Edward exists in real life, but he is not the benevolent creature you will think he is. You are leaving yourself vulnerable to boys who will use you and play it with you after they've broken you. Bella would never last in the real world. She needs a fantasy. The girl I was during the time was not me. I don't know what it was. I hate her. Please don't be Bella. Please don't be me. To top it off, he had the same "I'm not good for you, you should tell me to stay away, and I will never bother you" thing that Edward does. That was just a challenge for me to make him stay, to make a point. I think he knew it. When I finally did, he begged me, called me all the time to change my mind. Idiot. Twilight may be fiction, but it has real effects on real people. Books can be very powerful. Think about the classic novel by Orson Welles, 1984. Think about the lasting effect that book has had on people, how it's still affecting us today. If Twilight is merely escapist reading for you, then that's fine. But you can't ignore the negative effects Twilight has had on people. I've read posts from Twilight fans saying that they're flat out okay with stalking now and see it as romantic. There was a story on my community about a teenage girl who wanted to give parenting a try because of Twilight. A community member of mine works at an abused women's shelter, and she has had first-hand experience as what Twilight has done to women, and it's nothing good. You'll see the links in the info section of this video to confirm them, that I'm not just saying things, that actually happened. I'm not jumping on a bandwagon. I started a community for antis because I couldn't find one on the internet. And as for not thinking things through, as you can see by this video, I have. As somebody who will be an anthropologist someday, I understand how important it is to back up your claims with evidence, as I've done with all my points here. I'm not trying to act tough. I'm just trying to be smart. Auf Wiedersehen.